Picture this. You're sitting in traffic. You're already late, you're stressed, and then the car in front of you just stops for no reason. And something inside you just snaps. You honk, you maybe say something you really shouldn't say, and then 2 minutes later, you feel kind of terrible about it. Sound familiar? Yeah, we've all been there. And today, we're talking about what happens in that moment and what you can do differently. Welcome to Let's Talk Real English, the podcast where we talk about real life in real English. I'm Lara.
And I'm Eric. And today we are getting into something that I think is honestly one of the most useful life skills out there. And it's also, super relevant if you're learning English because a lot of this stuff comes up in everyday conversation. So yeah, we're excited about this one.
Yeah, totally. So the topic today is the power of not reacting. And I know that sounds kind of simple, right? Like, just don't react. Easy. But it's actually so much harder than it sounds. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff behind why we react the way we do.
Right. So let's actually start with the basics because I think it's worth asking, what does not reacting actually mean? Like, are we saying just stay silent, pretend nothing happens? Because I don't think that's quite it.
No. That's a really good point. Because not reacting doesn't mean you just don't feel things, right? It doesn't mean you just bottle everything up inside. It's more about choosing how you respond, rather than just kind of automatically doing whatever your first instinct tells you to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. There's like a space, right, between what happens to you and what you actually do about it. And most people, we kind of skip that space entirely. Something happens and we just go immediately without even thinking.
Exactly. And I actually love that framing, that space, because that space is kind of everything. That's where you have a choice. That's where you can decide, okay, do I really want to say this? Is this going to make the situation better or worse? Am I actually going to regret this in 5 minutes?
And you know what? I think the best way to really feel why this matters is just a real example, because this stuff isn't abstract. This is things that happen every single day. Social media is such a big one for this. Like, someone posts something you disagree with, and before you even fully read it, you're already typing a response. And it's kind of heated. And you hit send, and then you read it again, and you're like, why did I say it like that?
Totally. And this happens at work too, right? Someone gives you feedback that feels a bit harsh, or a colleague takes credit for something you did, and that feeling just rises up so fast. And if you react immediately, you might say something that damages the relationship or your reputation.
And actually, I want to share something a bit more personal here, if that's okay, because I think it lands harder than any hypothetical. There was this friend of mine. We'd been close for years, like really close. The kind of friendship where you tell each other stuff you wouldn't tell most people. And one night we were out with a group of people and he made this joke about something I'd shared with him in confidence. I don't think he meant anything by it, but I felt this wave, embarrassment and anger, kind of both at once. And I didn't pause, I didn't breathe, I just fired something back, something sharp, right there in front of everyone.
Oh, yeah, that moment where it just comes out before you can even catch it.
Exactly. And I saw it on his face immediately, this kind of flinch, like I'd actually landed something. And even in that split second, I knew I'd gone too far, but the words were already out there. You can't reach back and grab them. The rest of the evening was just weird. We kind of drifted to opposite ends of the room. Nobody said anything about it.
Did you end up talking about it after? Like, did you bring it up?
Not for a few weeks. And that was maybe the hardest part. This long silence where neither of us quite knew how to get back to normal. When we finally did talk, I apologized. And he was kind about it. He got it, sort of. But something had shifted. There was this hairline crack. The friendship was mostly the same, but not quite. And I think about that a lot. One moment, one unfiltered reaction. That's all it took to leave a mark on something that took years to build.
If you could go back to that moment, what would you have done differently?
Honestly, just waited. One breath. Let the moment pass. That's it.
And I think that's exactly it, right? It's not always the huge blowups that do the damage. It's those small, split second moments. One thing said too fast. And that space between the feeling and the word, that's everything.
Right. And I think that's really the key, isn't it? Because sometimes people hear don't react and they think it sounds kind of passive, like you're just being a pushover. But that's really not what it is at all.
Right, no, it's actually the opposite in a way, because it takes way more strength to pause and choose your response than it does to just explode. Anyone can explode, that's easy. But staying calm, being deliberate, that takes real self control. And people notice that. They respect it.
Oh, for sure. And the other big benefit is just your relationships get better because so many arguments, so many damaged friendships or tense work situations, they start with one impulsive comment. One thing said in anger that just can't be taken back.
Yeah, and there's a phrase in English for that actually. You can't unsay something. Once the words are out there, they're out there. And even if you apologize, even if you explain yourself, the other person still heard it. It still lands.
Yeah, I love that. So let's get practical because I think what most people want to know is okay, great, I get it. I should pause before reacting. But how? Like in the moment when you're feeling that rush of emotion, what do you actually do?
Yeah, this is the good part. So, the first thing, and this sounds almost too simple, is just breathe. Like one slow, deliberate breath. Because it actually does something physical. It sort of signals to your nervous system that there's no emergency here. It gives that amygdala a second to calm down.
And it buys you time, right? Even just a few seconds, because that's all you really need. Just enough of a gap to start thinking again instead of just reacting. And actually, there's a reason why that one simple breath works. Like, there's real science behind it. And it kind of explains everything we've been talking about.
So, there's a part of your brain called the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's alarm system. It's always scanning for threats, and when it picks something up, even a social one, like someone criticizing you, it fires off an emotional response before your thinking brain can even weigh in.
And it happens so fast, your body is already in stress mode before you've had a chance to process it.
There's actually a name for this. It's called an amygdala hijack, which honestly is such a great phrase. Your rational brain just gets hijacked, taken over, and you're suddenly running on pure emotion.
Oh, amygdala hijack. And by the way, hijack is such a good word to know, for English learners especially. It means taking control of something by force. So you can say, my emotions hijacked my thinking, or the conversation got hijacked. Really vivid and natural.
Right. So when you take that breath, what you're actually doing is giving your rational brain a chance to catch up. You're interrupting the hijack, buying yourself just enough time. Because this fast, automatic reaction, it was genuinely useful when humans lived in physically dangerous environments. You don't have time to think when there's a lion chasing you.
Right, exactly. You just run.
You just run. But we're not being chased by lions anymore. We're being triggered by passive-aggressive emails and comments online. And our brain is still treating it the same way, like it's life or death. So that breath, that tiny pause, it's you telling your nervous system, hey, this isn't a lion. I can actually think. And that changes everything. And so once you've got that pause, one of the best things you can do with it is ask yourself a question. Something like, is this going to matter in an hour? Or am I reacting to what actually happened or to how it made me feel? And sometimes the answer is, yeah, this is actually important. I do need to say something. But a lot of the time you realize it's not worth it.
So true. And there's actually a word for this kind of perspective. It's equanimity. It's a slightly more formal word, but it's so beautiful. It means a kind of calm, balanced mental state, especially in difficult situations, like staying steady, not getting swept away.
Equanimity. Oh, that's a great word. And it's not just like being cold or unfeeling. It's more like you feel the emotion, but you're not controlled by it. You're kind of present with it, but not dominated by it.
Love it. Okay, so another practical tip. What about when it's a conversation that's happening right now in real time? Like someone says something and you feel that heat rising and you can't really just walk away. What do you do then?
So there's a technique I really like, buying yourself time with words. Instead of blurting out the first thing that comes to mind, you say something like, "That's interesting, let me think about that for a second," or "I want to make sure I understand what you're saying." These phrases buy you time and make you sound thoughtful and composed. And along the same lines, there's another phrase I love, "I hear what you're saying." Not just "I hear you," which can sound a bit dismissive. "I hear what you're saying" shows the other person you're actually listening, even if you disagree. It really takes the temperature down.
Yeah, and take the temperature down, that's another great phrase. When a conversation gets heated, and heated is such a useful word here, it just means kind of emotionally intense, tense. You want to take the temperature down, bring it back to a calmer level.
And one of the most important skills that makes all of this possible is simply noticing. You can't change what you don't notice, but the moment you can observe yourself about to react, oh, there's that feeling again. That creates a tiny bit of distance, and that distance is everything. And it's worth remembering, not reacting immediately doesn't mean never addressing something. It's completely okay to say, "Hey, can we talk about this tomorrow when I've had time to think?" That's not avoidance. That's actually really mature communication. You're just creating the right conditions for the conversation.
Right. And that phrase, "can we talk about this when I've had time to think," is such a healthy thing to say. It's honest, it's calm, and it sets up a much better conversation than trying to hash everything out in the heat of the moment. And actually, I want to share one last practical tip because this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. It's really about building a habit over time. So at the end of the day, just take 2 minutes to reflect. Ask yourself, did I react to something today that I wish I'd handled differently? And if yes, what would I do next time? That small reflection, done regularly, actually rewires how you respond, slowly but surely.
I love that. Slowly but surely. It means you're making progress even when it doesn't feel dramatic. And that's really the message for today. You're not going to become some perfectly zen, unflappable person overnight. And honestly, that's not really the goal anyway. So let's do a quick recap because I want our listeners to walk away with something solid. First, not reacting doesn't mean not feeling. It means choosing how you respond instead of just automatically going with your first impulse.
Second, understand that impulsive reactions are a brain thing. It's not a character flaw. Your brain's alarm system is just doing its job, but you can learn to work with it instead of being controlled by it.
Third, use practical strategies. Breathe, buy time with phrases. Ask yourself if it'll matter in an hour. And if you need to step away and come back to a conversation later, that is completely okay. That is actually really wise.
And fourth, build the habit slowly. Reflect on your day, notice your patterns. Give yourself credit when you handle something well, and be kind to yourself when you don't, because you will still react sometimes. Everyone does. That's just being human.
And for our English learners, remember today's vocabulary. Hijack, you can't unsay something. Equanimity, I hear what you're saying. Heated, take the temperature down. And slowly but surely. These are all real, natural phrases you can use immediately.
That's a great challenge. Try even one phrase this week. It really does make a difference. All right, that wraps up today's episode of Let's Talk Real English. This was a really good one.
There's so much more to say, but we'll save it for another episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with someone who could use a reminder to pause before reacting.
Or maybe that person is us. And honestly, I think that's kind of the point. This isn't about becoming some perfectly calm, unshakable version of yourself. It's about that tiny gap, that moment of choice. And if I had to leave everyone with just one thought from today, your first reaction is often your emotion speaking. Your second response is who you choose to be.
That's the one. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to Let's Talk Real English. Keep practicing, keep being kind to yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.